I recently moved to the city, living with my boyfriend Jacob. I'm not a shy person. I've been in a lot of trouble. I don't believe in the devil, that is. I didn't until recently. A couple of days ago in the evening, met with my favorite after work, a little walk, and went home. We sat down to have tea. Then his brother Kevin came into the kitchen. His mom was working the night shift. So we're sitting there laughing. We decided to watch a movie before bed, chose a comedy, and sat down in front of the monitor. The movie was over. Everyone was getting sleepy, so we decided to go to bed. Kevin said goodnight and went to his room. I should make a clarification here. My brother's room is next to ours, but the windows of our room face the long side of the house, and Kevin's windows are on the end of the building. There are huge birch trees growing about 1.5 meters away from our windows. We made the bed and fell asleep, for we had to go to work the next day, both me and him. Just as we started to fall asleep, I heard a strange noise coming from the window. Jacob said something about birch trees through his sleep and started snoring. I decided to go back to sleep too, but there was no way. Something kept rustling against the mosquito netting, which almost all glass windows had, but there was a squeaking and squeaking noise. For some reason, the room became cool. I climbed over my favorite. I sleep near the wall on principle. Turned on the lamp so as not to wake Jacob, and rubbing my eyes, which weren't used to the light, went to the window, swearing quietly and tripping over the cat. When I got closer to the window, I was stunned. Something human-looking was staring out the window at me, something pale, with dark circles under its eyes. The eyes themselves were almost colorless, with a large pupil. With its long fingers, it scrabbled at the netting and squeaked thinly. I can't say exactly what it was saying. I only remembered some words. Give, come, where. I probably can't fully describe what was happening. I was shaking. The hair not only on my head, but everywhere on my body stood up. It felt like I had been splashed with ice water. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. So instead, I leapt to the window and slammed it shut in one fell swoop and turned the knob. Then, grabbing the cat, I jumped onto the bed and shook my lover. When Jacob opened his eyes, he didn't understand what the cat and I wanted from him. I was sitting there hugging the cat, not breathing, but whistling. I'm asthmatic. When he heard my whistling, he instantly woke up and rushed to the table where my inhaler was lying. To my cat's delight, the table was right next to the window. Jacob saw the creature in the window and leaped onto the bed, giving me the inhaler, but taking the cat with him. All three of us were already panicked. No, it wasn't trying to break the glass, chew a hole into a parallel world, summon Satan, or slime our window. No, it just hung there and watched, occasionally slapping the mosquito netting with its fingers, 4th floor level. The creature froze for a while, then tapped its finger very gallantly on the window. Looking at us intently, it just hung there and tapped its spider finger gently on our window. Apparently realizing that we didn't quite trust it, it smiled. I almost crapped my pants. It had 6 teeth in its mouth, but what teeth they were. Long, white. I just whimpered and hid under the blanket. I was shaking, howling quietly, covered with my head. Any child will tell you that the best defense against a monster is a blanket. I was shaking for about 3 minutes, or maybe it just seemed that way to me, because time drags on for a long time at times like that. The sound of the balcony door creaking in Kevin's room brought me and my lover out of our stupor. I glanced out the window. It was alert and slowly moving to the side. I exhaled, and Jacob did too. But then it hit us over the head, and the thing moved toward the corner of the house, with Kevin's balcony around the corner. Kevin's a guy who doesn't like the heat, and he keeps his windows and balcony door open until November. We jumped out of bed and ran out into the hallway. We ran to Kevin's door. When we threw it open, my legs gave out. Jacob's arms hung limply. The cat just flopped to the floor and crawled back into the hallway, leaving stinking puddles behind him. Kevin was sitting on the floor under the balcony door, tears streaming from his eyes, one arm covered in cuts, an unknown creature roaming the balcony, wandering and tapping on the balcony door. I started to gesture for Kevin to come to me. He looked at the door, then at us, and still gathering his strength and taking his will in his fist, he crawled on all fours, quickly crawled to us. We huddled together, picked up the shitting cat, and slammed the door to Kevin's room shut with a stool from the hallway. We crawled to the kitchen. With trembling hands, I poured valerian into the mugs of everyone, including the cat, and they all drank it in one gulp. The silence lasted for about 10 seconds, and then they all started swearing, yelling, asking, "What the f*** is this?" Kevin's whole arm was torn up, as if he'd been razor-sliced and poured boiling water on it. The skin was blistering, and there was still a little blood oozing out. I started rinsing his arm in the bathtub, then treating it with various remedies. In the middle of the rescue, we heard Jacob screaming wildly from the kitchen, who had already recovered from the shock. He checked the front door, the kitchen windows, and the whole area, closed all the windows and made sure they were closed 100 times. We flew out of the bathroom and involuntarily screamed too. The creature was tearing the mesh on the window and scraping the pane of glass. We flew out into the hallway with unimaginable speed, sat there, and sat as quiet as gophers. After a while, the eerie sound of picking at the window stopped and there was silence. The three of us crawled into the bathroom and continued the operation to save Kevin's hand, occasionally looking out into the hallway. But thank God no one appeared in the hallway. 10 minutes later, we found out that the cat was missing, realized that he was in the kitchen, and decided to rescue the poor guy. He was a family member after all. We armed ourselves with a stool, a mop, in general what came to hand, and took it. Looking into the kitchen, I was shocked. In the outer glass was a hole the size of a large apple. The cat was lying under the table in fear, all shaking, and the creature was walking outside the window. It just walked, and that's all. It didn't scrape the glass. It just whined and whistled, and that whistle was so strong it could penetrate to the bones. So this creature was hanging around outside our windows until dawn, and we were afraid to look into our rooms for a long time after that, just in case. Needless to say, that night we never slept, and the next night too. We slept only one by one for a week, and after dark we stayed outdoors one by one. We lied to Mom about the window, and Kevin also lied about his hand. The story began to slowly not that forget, such things never forget, just somehow calmer and with humor began to look at it. We're generally cheerful guys, although Kevin and I got gray hair after that night. I'm 23 and my boyfriend is only 15. Jacob started talking in his sleep. The cat's fine though. What is alarming is that since recently one of us periodically wakes up in the night from an incomprehensible whistling and hissing under the window. The cat has become nervous again, does not approach the windows at all. Jacob's mom also said that someone followed her in the yard in the evening, and not just walked and hid in the bushes. And we've been getting calls on the intercom at night. You pick up the phone, and there's silence, and only whistling and hissing. What are we supposed to do now?